You're welcome to another interesting civic education class. My name is Subahat. The theme of our lesson for today is democracy. The topic we'll be looking at is election and voter responsibilities, part 2. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to discuss the responsibilities of the voter, describe the steps involved in voting, and discuss the importance of elections. The selection of leaders to represent the interests of people in government can be done through various ways. We have seen election to be one of the most legitimate ways of choosing or selecting leaders for political or public offices. Election can be defined as the process of selecting or choosing leaders that will represent the interests of the people in government by voting or casting of votes. Therefore, citizens or voters have certain responsibilities they are expected to perform during an election. Now, let's take a look at some responsibilities of voters during an election. But before we go deeply into that, who is a voter? A voter is a person who is registered, eligible, and willing to vote during an election. As voters or citizens of a country, we are expected to carry out or perform certain responsibilities so as to have a free and fair election. Citizens of a country have a lot of responsibilities or duties that they are expected to carry out in a country. One of such duties or responsibilities is their civic or political duty. An example of such is participating in electoral processes or election. Every eligible citizen of a country is expected to participate in elections because it is their right and duty. Another responsibility of a voter is that they are expected to register to be able to vote. Before an election is conducted in a country, the agency responsible for conducting elections in the country, for example in Nigeria, the Independent National Electoral Commission, usually conducts or carries out voters registration for every eligible voter in the country. Therefore, every eligible citizen or voter is expected to come out and get registered for election. This is because without getting registered and being given a voter's card, a person cannot participate in an election. Another responsibilities of voters is that they are expected to obey electoral laws. There are certain laws that govern the electoral processes in different countries. Therefore, every voter is expected to obey these laws because failure to obey them will draw punishment or punitive measures upon such a citizen. One example of such electoral laws is every voter is expected to possess a voter's card before an election because this is what qualifies the person to participate in an election. The last responsibility of a voter I'll be looking at in this class is that they are expected to hold politicians accountable. Before elections are carried out in a country, different political parties and their candidates usually go out for political campaigns. During these campaigns, they read out their manifestos where they tell the citizens of the country all the things that they plan to do if they are voted into political office. Therefore, citizens or voters are expected to hold the politicians or government accountable by demanding that they fulfill all the campaign promises that were made before they were elected into public offices. Now, let's look at some steps involved in voting. Before an election is conducted in a country, every eligible voter is expected to get registered so that they can be qualified or eligible to participate in the electoral or voting process. The second step we'll be looking at in this lesson is the preparation of election timetable. Before elections, the agency responsible for conducting election usually brings out an election timetable. This election timetable usually states the dates for elections, the deadline for the submission of the names of the candidates of various political parties, and the deadline for political campaigns. The next step involved in voting is the commencement of political campaigns. Every registered political party, as well as their candidates, usually go on campaigns in different parts of the country before the election dates. Therefore, every political party is expected to carry out political campaigns from ward to ward at the local government level as well as at the state level. The commencement of voting is another step in the voting process. This step explains that every eligible voter is expected to come out during the election to cast their vote in favor of the candidates who they feel will represent their interests better in government. The final step is the announcement of election results. After voters have cast their votes in favor of various candidates and political parties, their ballots or votes are counted so as to know the winner for that election. This brings the electoral or voting process to an end. Now, we'll be looking at the importance of elections. From the various steps that we have learned earlier, we can see how important elections are in every society. Some importance of elections include: 1. They encourage a peaceful change of government. Elections have proven to be a good way of changing government from one leadership to another. This is because elections are conducted periodically or from time to time. Another importance of election is that they encourage political education. What is political education? Political education is the educating or enlightening of citizens or members of a country on the various political processes of that country. One example of such political processes is election. During elections, electoral commissions, the government, as well as non-governmental organizations carry out awareness campaigns educating the citizens of the country about the electoral processes, what to do, what not to do, and the laws that guide the electoral processes. Therefore, election is one way of educating the citizens of a country politically. Elections also help to measure public opinion. What is public opinion? Public opinion is the collective view of the citizens of a country concerning a particular subject or matter. Election helps the government to study the opinion of the citizens. This is because via elections, the government and various political parties test how popular they are via elections. This is because through the results of the elections, they get to know the choices of the voters, which makes them to understand if they are accepted in that country or not. Thus, they are expected to improve on their performances so that they can be accepted by the voters. Finally, elections are important because they encourage political participation. Political participation is the active participation of citizens in the political processes going on in their country. Therefore, elections give the people an opportunity to air their views concerning who they want to represent their interests in government. Thus, it gives the citizens a sense of belonging as well as allows their votes to speak for them or their votes to count. We've come to the end of this lesson, but before we go, let's take a quick summary on all that we've learned so far. We looked at some responsibilities of a voter, which include they are expected to perform their political duty, They are expected to register to be able to vote. They are expected to obey electoral laws, and they are expected to hold politicians accountable. We also looked at some steps involved in voting, which are the registration of voters, the preparation of election timetable, and the commencement of campaigns. Finally, we looked at some importance of voting, which include they encourage a peaceful change of government, they encourage political education, and they help to measure public opinion. Now, let's take a few questions to test our knowledge on all that we've learned in this lesson. Question 1. One importance of elections is that it option A encourages lack of interest in politics. Option B measures public opinion. Or option C produces unaccountable leaders. The correct answer is option B, measures public opinion. Question 2. Which of these deals with voters assembling at their registered voting centers to vote? Option A, the registration of voters. Option B, the commencement of voting. Option C, the announcement of election results. Or option D, the commencement of campaigns. The correct answer is option B, the commencement of voting. I believe you can now discuss the responsibilities of a voter and describe the steps involved in voting. Thanks for being part of my class. See you next time. Bye.